Crossroads in this place to urge the government to act on behalf of Unifor members at GM Oshawa who now know that the Liberal government has turned their backs on them. The GM plant closure is devastating for the families of 2,500 workers and for thousands more whose livelihoods have depended on that plant in Oshawa for over 100 years. The Liberals have still to act, Madam Speaker. There was no plan, no emergency meetings. The Prime Minister still hasn't even been to Oshawa, where the layoff notices are coming and people are very uncertain of their future. Canadians deserve a government that is working hard for them. Meeting with auto workers in Oshawa should be at the most basic level of engagement that this Liberal government has completely failed to do. And what is this Prime Minister waiting for? You know, it's been months since the announcement. These workers are fighting for their jobs along with Unifor, looking for alternatives for the plant that they have in Oshawa, something that can keep some of them working with their families. You know, it's clear that it won't be a solution that keeps GM in Canada. And the reason is because the Liberal government simply refuses to get GM to the table to talk about what it will take for them to reinvest in Canada, in Oshawa. This is critical. This will impact not just the community of Oshawa, but the entire auto ecosystem across the country and certainly across southwestern Ontario. You know, for far too long, Conservative and Liberal governments have taken the auto sector, its companies, and our auto workers for granted. The auto sector produces 40% of all Canadian exports. That's a huge portion of what we're exporting. It's also a significant amount of all the research and development that Canada does. And it employs tens of thousands of highly skilled, well-paid workers in high-tech manufacturing while supplying billions in taxes to support public services like healthcare and education. This industry built the Canadian middle class, the blue-collar workers of our country, Madam Speaker. And auto workers have been the backbone of that. This is the crown jewel of our economy, not just in Windsor-Essex, but across the country. 40% of our exports from auto. To be quite honest, it's what every other country wants, and they're trying to steal away. I can tell you, Madam Speaker, that I visited Malaysia with the Trade Committee last year around the CPTPP. Malaysia, 10 years ago, had no auto industry whatsoever. But they have gone above and beyond to attract and create an entire auto sector that is getting them away from their traditional sectors. So, Madam Speaker, to say that somehow, you know, auto jobs have just, are being replaced by robots or being replaced by not just technology but by processes, I think is completely and utterly false. I think that this government should be focusing on how we can keep these jobs here in Canada. Over the last 10 years in North America alone, Canada received only 7% of the auto investment that was made versus Mexico, which got 20%, and the US, which received 73%. Those numbers alone, Madam Speaker, tell us that we are not doing enough, and certainly this Liberal government has no auto policy, has no auto strategy. When we lost the Auto Pact, the Conservatives and now the Liberals did nothing to try to support auto workers. So my question is, will the Liberals finally stand up for auto workers in a meaningful way and go to Oshawa and try to attract investment in our country?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Innovation, Science and Economic Development. Thank you. Madam Speaker, as we've said on several occasions, we believe that General Motors erred in closing the assembly plant in Oshawa, and that's what the Minister said to the GM CEO at a meeting in January in Detroit. We know that the closing of this plant will have repercussions throughout the community. We want these workers and all Canadians to know that we are committed to ensuring the future prosperity of the Canadian economy. The Minister talked to the Government of Ontario and continues to work with it to coordinate efforts in order to ensure that the measures we are taking meet the needs of workers on which decisions could have repercussions. The Minister also had discussions with Unifor and is working with the latter to follow up on our commitments as regards workers in Oshawa and Windsor, their families, suppliers in the auto sector, and the community in its entirety. We were happy to learn that Fiat Chrysler has invested $355 in facilities in Windsor relating to a future product. Traditionally, this sector has been an excellent source of good-paying jobs in the auto sector. The government wants to ensure that Canadians continue to have access to these jobs as well as to a number of other good-paying jobs for the middle class. And we have a plan to achieve that. The auto manufacturing sector is a key to the Canadian economy. It's part of our plan, Skills and Innovation Plan, which is ambitious and focused on the future. It is a comprehensive plan. We are investing in innovation and development for skills today so that Canadians can succeed in the economy of the future. Thanks to programs like the Strategic Innovation Fund, we have succeeded in obtaining significant reinvestments for other plants, assembly plants for automobiles in Canada. Since 2015, auto manufacturers have invested $6 billion in Canada. $6 billion in Canada for important equipment upgrades, for cutting-edge manufacturing technology, and to deepen research and development in Canada. Our partnership with auto manufacturers has supported the next generation of vehicles and has positioned Canada as a leader for autonomous, connected, cleaner vehicles. These investments will strengthen the presence of the auto sector in Canada and will provide Canadians with the occasions and opportunities and good paying jobs for future years. This plan will yield positive, tangible results. We have also learned yesterday of the plan through the announcement by Toyota to build the Lexus NX and the Lexus NX Hybrid in Cambridge, Ontario. In addition, Madam Speaker, the specialized training for the jobs will be necessary for the jobs of the future, and we're working to ensure that Canadians receive the training on the technology for the future. Canada has an automobile sector that is mature, and we are strengthening expertise in leading-edge technology. We are training a highly qualified workforce and building solid R&D capacity. That's all part of our plan, aiming to ensure Canada succeeds in the economy of the future, in the auto sector and other industries. Companies have confidence in Canada and Canadian workers. They know that we're prepared to build the cars of the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And, the member mentions the Minister of Innovation coming to Windsor recently, and the reason that he had to do that is because in this budget, they introduced an incentive for electric vehicles. And in doing so, they excluded the only Canadian-made electric vehicle, the Pacifica, the hybrid that is built in Windsor. So we had a rally immediately following the budget in Windsor with all of the auto workers there who couldn't believe that when the Prime Minister had just been in the plant months before, that it didn't cross his mind when making the budget to ensure that the crown jewel of Windsor, the Pacifica, the only electric-made vehicle in Canada, was not included. So we had a rally, we pressured, and then, lo and behold, here comes the minister down to Windsor to announce that, yes, they will include the hybrid. So thanks to the workers, those auto workers that came out, thanks to the member of Windsor West and Windsor-Tecumseh, who along with myself stood side by side to them to demand better from this government. But this is the lack of understanding of auto that the Liberals have, that they make such a foolish error in a budget that they had to correct. And I'm thankful to those auto workers for working very hard to correct it, but it shouldn't be on the backs of auto workers. It should be the government that...
Unfortunately, the time is up, and I have to allow the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's unfortunate to see the member opposite playing politics on such an important issue. Had she listened and heard, as we did, the statement made and the explanations about the program by the Minister of Transport, and the Pacifica will be a part of that. As I was saying earlier, Madam Speaker, we believe that General Motors erred in closing the assembly plant in Oshawa. Our government is investing in innovation and development and skills so that Canadian companies are prepared to succeed in the economy of the future. These initiatives will make it possible to ensure that Canadian workers have the skills in manufacturing, leading-edge manufacturers employers will need for the economy of the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.